Hi, Mike Kennedy with you. Every once in a while, I delete my history on YouTube because this gets so full of stuff, and I don't know. It's we do this series, uh, through the Bible in a year, and with a bunch of history, the thing doesn't pop up closer to the top where it should sometimes. So we just clear it once in a while, and this time I cleared it. Kind of interested that what it added, okay? It added a lot of videos of becoming a brother in a monastery, and but it also added a bunch of former CIA and spy people, that were actual agents talking about different things. And they had this woman on who was the head of the disguise department for the CIA. It was very interesting what she was saying. She was saying, well, you got to be able to appear as someone else. And it usually has to be good enough so that, you can sit across the table with someone and they still believe your disguise. It's got to be really well done. In other words, you see on TV a lot of times, someone will have a disguise on, and the head's fairly small or whatever on the TV screen, so you don't really notice how goofy it really looks. So she talked about putting sand in your shoe to walk with a limp, but would take a mold of someone's upper part of their mouth, the palate, and like you would with a false teeth, but they wouldn't be putting teeth in. They'd be putting something in so that when you talk, your voice would actually come out different. And it could give you a lisp, or they had different things. They had different things you could put in your mouth that might, change how your lips appear and everything. And then they were talking about, changing the structure of your face bones, maybe your ears, doing something different with your hair, like maybe I'd shave bald so that I would look completely different, or, different things like that. They talked about clothing too, and this one person, she said you had to be able to become a completely different person sometimes in 45 seconds. And so they had this video of this guy. He's walking in a crowd, and the first thing he does, he takes his tie out, and then he rips his shirt. Well, he's got like a suit coat on. He just pulls it, and it's not actually a shirt. It's the part of the shirt that you would see with a suit on. And he sticks that in his bag. Then he takes off the suit and coat and puts that in the bag. He's wearing like a tank top. Then he pulls out a hat, puts it on, and so he does this in a fairly short period of time. But if someone was looking for him, if someone had said, yeah, he's in a blue suit, he's a young guy, da-da-da-da, when this other guy walked by, whoever, they wouldn't know it was him at all, because the description would be completely different. Wearing a tank top, oh, he's got a wool cap, he's got this, he's got that. And it was interesting. One thing I found really interesting that goes into the subject of gender dysphoria, okay? Gender dysphoria is kind of described as having this mental state where you're uncomfortable in your body because of the sex you are, okay? A male is uncomfortable because he's a male. A woman would be uncomfortable because she's a woman, biological sex. So, but what this person said was really interesting. The disguised person, she said, you can turn a woman into a man, but you can never turn a man into a woman. You just wouldn't even try it. That would be stupid. It wouldn't work. And I think that does fall into today with the idea that men are quite different physically. And I'm not just talking about sex organs. I'm talking about the build of their body, their heads, their hands, and everything. So, sometimes you'll see someone made up as a woman, and it looks sort of like a real woman on TV or something. But then you get them next to a person so you can judge the size difference, and it sticks right out that it's a man. I could remember the Flip Wilson, black comic, used to do this thing where he'd dress up, was it Geraldine? As Geraldine, and he'd go through this comedy act. Well, and him just standing there, he sort of looked like a woman, but again, if he was standing next to another person, you immediately saw that no, this is a man. And so, that was the disguise rule with it. You would never, in any situation, try to turn a man into a woman, because it's just going to not work. And why does that not work? Because of these big physical differences. You're not going to be able to remove a rib to make someone's midsection narrower. You're not going to be able to, remove an Adam's apple. There's all kinds of different things. They're just the hands. Like, you take, photos of men's hands and women's hands and ask people to sort them. They're going to do a pretty good job. And why? Well, because we're biological. One of the most, satisfying emotionally acts that you can do is, procreation. We'll put a big word in there in case other people are watching. And it means that since that's a driving force, you could say, behind evolution, look at evolution, survival of the fittest, it's not just survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the fittest so they can breed. That's how evolution really works. It isn't just, you have these 10 organisms and one of them is better suited so it can live. Well, no, that doesn't do any good at all. That would just terminate. It has to be that person, that organism then can mate and put its gene pool into the species and take other genes out. And this is fairly common with a lot of animals that will have, the dominant male, like a lion, fights other males to become the dominant lion, and he has a number of female lioness, and but he was the one that survived, so he's the one that can mate with these female lions and produce young. And the other ones, they can't. Well, eventually one day he's going to get replaced too by someone younger, probably, and stronger, but, he's already, contributed to the gene pool. So I guess why I'm saying that is I'm trying to explain that we are very fine-tuned to detect sex of an individual. Men are even more so than women, I think, because we're very visually oriented. Women tend to be less visually oriented, not that they are still, but it's very easy to pick up subconscious things or non-subconscious things, and before you even think about anything about political correctness or this or that, you already know. You've already been told subconsciously that this person next to you is a man and this other person next to you is a woman. Because again, you're not going to have any success in the evolutionary scheme of things if you get those two confused. So when they try to take a man and turn him into a woman somehow, maybe it's just cosmetically, or even with surgery, it just doesn't really work. It isn't a complete process. They can do anything they want with butchering parts of the body, but, the shoulders are too big. The different things about the person's body, a lot of times their voice is so completely different than a female voice. So what I'm saying is, if you take you take a male that has this gender dysphoria, he's uncomfortable being a male, right? You somehow transition him, whether you do tons of surgery or not, but he gets over to this other side where he is now a woman. Everybody still thinks he's a man. Most people are. 90% of the people or higher that look at this person that's with them in any context, are their you know, their biological sense of the ability to reproduce is going to be click, and it's going to click right in, and they're going to say, oh, this isn't a man, this isn't a woman, this is a man. And so what does that end up? The poor person is now, even, I would think in a lot of sense, more uncomfortable, because now they've got this, they're in a state here now where you know, they're in this conflict, and they're trying to get people to call them and say that they're a woman, when everything the other person feels and subconsciously experiences knows that this person is a male. So you go from being uncomfortable, a male being uncomfortable in a male body, to a person being uncomfortable in all of society, because everybody can kind of see through it. So there's this big political fight with pronouns and this and that and all of these things. Why? To make this person less uncomfortable. But like I say, to me it seems like they didn't gain anything. They were just uncomfortable over here, and then on this other approach, they're probably just as uncomfortable. And we do find that people outgrow gender dysphoria, especially children. And, you know, there's this thing called gender regret, where people who have surgical things done to them later on come to experience the fact that their sexual desires and whatever become more normal somehow, and all of a sudden they kind of look like they might kind of be a woman, and then they're being attracted to beautiful women. And so you know, it's just, you know, it's just a biological thing. And I thought this disguise expert saying that about you just can never turn a man into a woman made a lot of sense. I mean, like I say, on TV or with all kinds of makeups and everything, and, you know, doing certain things, yeah, sure, from a distance, those people can, you know, appear to be more female, but generally in person, it's going to be totally obvious to anyone who's the male and female. And it's like I was in an office the other day, and one of the persons, you know, in the office is dealing with, you know, something with me, and, you know, I'm looking at this person and I'm saying, this person is dressed like a woman, but, you know, it was a man, you know, and they had, how could I tell? They had male pattern baldness. You know, it was obvious that they were balding as a man instead of a woman, and just other attributes about their face and different things. It was really easy to tell that they were actually a man. Now, did I tell them that? No, of course not. And, you know, they're there doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the office, so everything's kosher. But if someone had said to me, blah, 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 and I went to say a pronoun about them, I could have put in he instead of she, because that's what clicked in my brain when I first saw them. And, you know, we often speak before we think anyway, and especially about things like that. You know, misgendering someone would be extremely easy to do when someone's a man and they're in this disguise of a woman. It's just going to be, in some ways, the natural thing to do. So, let me know what you think about that. I'm going to continue to watch some of these ex-CIA and people from other spy agencies. Even one of them was a guy from Russia talking about things in the KBG and different things like that. And it's just kind of interesting. Bye.